There is a app that's like Tinder, but has a much smaller reach, but it's called Field, and it was originally created specifically to cater to the non-monogamous and kinky community. So instead of people saying, oh, I really like going on holiday and like drinking gin and coffee and like walking up mountains, people will say things like, I'm a top and I enjoy these kind of impact play and these kind of, I'm looking for somebody to have sex with me and my partner and blah, blah, blah. That's much more explicit. And so I'm active on that app. I had an experience that actually put me off Field for a few years because I was so untrusting of it. It was about 3 years ago, and I'd spoken to this person about what I was interested in, which was about sensation play and impact play. So sensation play is like deliberately playing with the pleasure that can be derived from a variety of sensations on your body. So it's not like sex per se, but it can look like playing with feathery things and scratchy things and light things and hot and cold things and hard things and soft things. And it's like that kind of variety of sensation. And I started talking to this person on Field who asked what I was looking for, and then I told him that I was looking for that. And he was saying, oh, that's absolutely perfect. That's exactly what I love giving. I'm so experienced in this. This is also my favourite thing to do, blah, 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 blah. I was just kind of saying everything that I wanted to hear. We agreed to meet up, we go for a drink, and we kind of get on. It's like a nice vibe. He seems very sweet. And I think, okay, we'll have a good time. And I said to him, like, I'm not having penetrative sex. Piving isn't a hard boundary for me in this encounter, but it's not that important to me either. And I don't like the dynamic of feeling like I'm a kind of oven being like warmed up with all this stuff, all this sensation stuff. Yeah, we'll do all that, but then that and what it's going to culminate in is piving and me orgasming as like a person with a penis. That makes it feel transactional to me in a way that I am uncomfortable with. So I was very clear that it was not something that I was necessarily going to be interested in doing at any point, no matter how much time was spent doing sensation stuff. And I wanted to be upfront. And he was saying, he's absolutely fine with that, not a problem. He doesn't need to orgasm, it's all fine. And then I said, if we were to piv, if at some point in the evening it would feel right to have penetrative sex, then a hard boundary is sex without a condom. And I said, not that I needed to, but I, for some reason, did say, this is like, for multiple reasons, I'm not on any other form of contraception. I also have a fluid boundary with my partner, and that means the only person at the time that I was having unprotected sex with was my partner, and I was not going to risk bringing in any STIs into our relationship. So I was like, 100%, it's condom o'clock. That it has to happen. So I was like, do you have any condoms? And he said, no, I don't, but I can buy some on the way home. And I said, okay, that fine. I'm happy to let's split the cost. But I want to make it really explicit that stopping on the way to your flat is not me consenting to piving, even though we buy condoms. And also, me going to your flat is not consenting to anything except I'm intrigued what might happen if we have more privacy than we do in this pub. I know that this can often be read as sexual consent, but that is not what I'm communicating, and I need you to understand that. He's like, yes, absolutely. I said, I'm going to drive myself to your flat. He wanted to drive me, and I said, I'm going to drive in my car, and I'm also going to ask for your address, and I'm going to tell you that I'm sending it to my friend, because that's a safety precaution that I would always take, and I want you to be comfortable with that. And he was like, of course, I understand, that's absolutely fine, blah, blah, blah. Makes sense. Obviously, I'm just some stranger you don't know, and I'm really comfortable with that. I was like, okay, great. So we had all these conversations in the pub. I have his address, I send it to a friend. We stop at a pharmacy on the way home, we split the cost. There's an understanding that him buying condoms and having them does not mean that I'm signing over my fanny. And yet, we get to his fucking house and it's just quite quickly apparent that he had no experience in kink, that he had no interest in kink. And I remember it so clearly because this is one of the earlier experiences after my primary relationship became non-monogamous. So I hadn't had sex with many other people for quite a few years other than my partner. So it was still quite new territory to be dating. And I remember he was going down on me. It was really like very quickly got naked, and I just found myself sort of on this wave of like, wait, what the fuck? This is not what's meant to be happening. But I was so kind of taken aback. I didn't say anything, and it's not that I didn't feel unsafe at all. I just felt like sort of like I'd been tricked. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? And it was one point I was lying on his bed and he was going down on me, and I remember just staring at the ceiling being like, why is this happening? It was just so not what I had asked for and said that I was interested in. So at a certain point I was like, hang on, like what are we doing? And he framed it as like, oh, I'm just so attracted to you, I'm so into it, I'm so hot for you that like I don't want to do all that other shit, let's just fuck, was basically the vibe, as if it was sort of testament to my desirability that he didn't want to play in the ways that we'd discussed, which is bullshit. Like that isn't a thing. that's not a thing that anybody who's into sensation play would be like, oh, you're so hot, I don't want to do this, I just want to fuck. Like, it was such a deceit. And he's fingering me, and I remember that just this feeling of like my body reacting. I was there, and I was like, my vaginal muscles are clenching, I'm squirting, and I'm experiencing like no pleasure. In my head, I just remember what his ceiling looked like, feeling like, what the fuck is happening? This is so annoying. I just felt so pissed off. And then I quite suddenly felt like it kind of hurt. I was like, wait, what the fuck are you doing? And he was like, oh, I just want to see if my fist can get in here. And I was like, what are you doing? And I sort of sat up and was like, I was sort of dumbfounded. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And he was laughing. He's like, oh, sorry, I just wanted to see how much you could take. And I was like, I kind of couldn't communicate in that moment, like, what a completely outrageous thing this was. Not just kind of ethically, but just practically. I was like, you're an idiot and you're a dickhead, and this is completely unacceptable. And I don't remember exactly how I communicated this, but I was like, well, you can't... I think I focused on the practical thing, which was quite a funny thing. I was like, you're trying to fist me without lube. Like, what the hell? Which obviously is not the point, but I was like, you're an... And also he was like 45 or something. He's like 20 years older than me, or than I was at the time. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like I thought that would be like, he's going to be older and experienced and know what he's doing. Oh, idiot. He may as well have been like 17. But he was like, oh, sorry. And I was just lying there. And at this point I knew that mainly what I needed to do was leave, that this wasn't going to be a pleasurable evening. I felt very duped. And I just think this guy's an idiot. But it's very difficult to like extract yourself. It's like I've been in this house for only like 15 minutes, and I was just finding it awkward to like communicate what shit time I was having. And it wasn't shit, and like I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel threatened. I was just like, this is not what I want. And I mean, I'm catching myself saying it wasn't that bad. I didn't feel unsafe. Like, what a barometer to have, right? I didn't feel threatened, therefore it was fine. I didn't feel threatened, which I easily could have done, but it was still shit. But then he sort of comes up, he'd been down around my genitals, and then he kind of brings himself up. I'm lying on my back on the bed, and he comes up to start kissing me, and he's kissing me, and I remember being like, I can taste my own vagina, and I'm just like thinking, this isn't something that I mind usually, but I just remember thinking, it's so weird that my vagina's been in your mouth, because you're just obviously a complete twit. But then I feel his penis start to push into my vagina without a condom on. And he's over me, and he's this big guy. He's like an ex-rugby player, so he's like huge. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And I like push him off me. And there's a split second where I'm looking into his eyes, and I think, I have this like split second of panic of thinking, oh fuck, I'm fucked here if he doesn't let me push him off. And he kind of sighs and then like allows me to push him off me next to me on the bed. And I go, what the fuck are you doing? And he goes, oh, I just wanted to see if it would fit. And he just is so like, oh, you know, I just wanted to see if it would fit. And I'm just in this like, I'm gobsmacked and I'm so outraged. And the main emotion that I'm feeling is relief, because there was that moment of panic of going, oh God, I'm entirely like physically helpless. And his penis is right about to like get all the way into my vagina. And I was just, you know, it was such a close call that I found myself feeling just appreciative that he wasn't prepared to carry on despite my protestation. Again, very low bar. And I'm lying there thinking, I'm feeling this weird mixture of like, oh, he's just spent some time going down on me and fingering me. So I'm feeling slightly awkward about leaving because I'm having this bizarre sense of obligation to not just leave. Even though that was a really casual form of attempted rape. And it didn't feel like it in the sense that it was very, you know, banal. And he was very kind of cash about it, and I didn't feel unsafe or threatened for more than a split second, and then relief because I was like, oh, actually this isn't gonna go in that direction. And I just lay there thinking about all of this going, this is so weird. And I said to him, I was like, what just happened is completely unacceptable. You attempted to penetrate me without my consent after such a kind of overwrought and explicit dialogue about my boundaries in terms of not just whether or not we were going to have penetrative sex, but whether we were going to have unprotected penetrative sex. And you've just gone, like, there is no conceivable way that he could have thought that it was okay for him to do that, given the conversations we'd had. And I was lying there thinking, I work as a sex educator, and I teach about consent, and I am better placed than most people to navigate sex consensually. I'm more confident at communicating my wants and needs and boundaries than most people, because I have the language, because this is my work. And even I cannot communicate effectively to someone in such a way that it is heard. And then I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? I'm gonna go. And I even said to him, I was like, I feel weirdly uncomfortable leaving because you've gone down on me for a bit, but what you just did was completely unacceptable. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I was just, you're so hot, like, oh, before you go, you sure you don't want to give me a hand job? And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty fucking sure I don't want to give you a hand job. And he goes, oh, not even just a blow job. If you don't want to have sex with me, just like, you sure you don't want to suck me off? And I was like, yeah, I'm really fucking sure. And then all sense of like guilt was very much dissipating. And I was like, this guy can fuck off. And so I leave. And I feel so dirty and I feel so gross, as you would, because then I feel embarrassed because I was like, well, my judge of character is shit. I feel relief and I feel like, God, is it, you know, this victim blaming starts coming in where I'm going, I could easily have been assaulted then in a way that could have been so damaging to me. And I'm thinking, am I an idiot for having, I met this guy in a pub and I went back to his house. That's a fucking dangerous thing to do. My having sent his address to whoever did fuck all to help me there, obviously. Oh God, is it my fault? Like, am I being reckless? Am I not taking my safety seriously? And I'm going, oh, and then in my head I'm going, no, fuck off. I should be allowed to go and fuck people without, you know, I don't think I was reckless. I think I took reasonable precautions and I did feel safe with him. And this is what's interesting. At no point did I actually think he was being predatory. At no point did I get a sense of like, ooh, my nervous system is jangling and you're not nice, you're not a good person. It was so fucking banal. And he did get off when I pushed him. He was selfish. He was a fucking oaf. He obviously didn't care much about what I wanted. But he wasn't... or maybe I'm just saying that to myself and that was just luck. But I then sent him a message saying the next day when I sort of had a shower and cleared my head a bit, and I said, what just happened is really bad. Like, I feel duped in terms of what we were going home to do. You obviously didn't remotely want to, like, do any wax play. You just wanted to fuck me. The attempt to fist me, the attempt to penetrate me, the fact that you did that without any protection, like, this is a serious boundary crossing that is, like, completely unacceptable. And if I was labeling what you did, by the legal definition, it was attempted rape. That is what it was on paper. I don't feel traumatized. I'm fine. I'm angry, but I'm fine. But that is what happened, and I really need... I mean, like, you need to take accountability for that. And do you know what his response was? Fuck off, you fat bitch. And then he blocked me. Of course, all the time people feel safe with someone and feel like somebody who they're with is going to respect them and be mindful about their autonomy and consent, and their spidey senses don't protect them. It's just a matter of luck, because people are really good at playing the part of a respectful and caring and sexy kind of a date. And so I just see myself as really lucky that I left unscathed. And I'm so aware that countless people in that similar dynamic, that similar situation every day are not so lucky as I was. That the person who they felt safe around, such that they considered going to their house, even though they're a complete stranger, that sense of safety was there until it wasn't. And you can't predict when that's gonna lift and change and distort. I reported him to the platform the field, the app where we met. You can report another user, and I have no idea what happened. I sent a report that said, this was my experience with this person. I don't think this person's safe. I don't feel traumatized by it, and I never did, and I don't feel my self-flagellation and self-blame went quite quickly, thankfully. But it is this really disgusting reality that if you want to embrace your sexuality, and if you find it exciting and fun to have sex with lots of different people who you don't necessarily know, who aren't necessarily in your circles, you can't actually protect yourself. Yeah, it's making peace with the fact that I've not made peace with it. It's coming to terms with the fact that in order for me to express my sexuality in a way that is authentic, I'm also risking getting assaulted. I'm also risking being hurt. And I know that there's that risk, but the alternative of not exploring and not adventuring and not expressing myself in this way feels uncomfortably closeted. And I feel stubborn. I feel so furious that this is the state of things that I kind of refuse to limit myself. But I do also, at the back of my mind, think, it's a matter of time. At work, I constantly get asked by people how they can protect themselves, or when training people on how to teach about consent and sexual violence, I get this question all the time of, like, how can we protect the girls, or how can we keep ourselves safe? And the only honest answer is that the only thing we can do to prevent sexual violence from taking place in our sex lives is to not perpetrate it, to respect people's boundaries when we're being intimate with them, to respect people's boundaries in every context, and to model consensual communication and boundary keeping. Being assertive in saying no is never going to protect people from sexual violence, because people can ignore that. People do ignore that all the time. The only way of being foolproof is to not perpetrate sexual violence, and the narrative that people can protect themselves is just inherently victim blaming. And that's something that's so deep seated in our society that I can know that really forcefully when I'm teaching or when I'm supporting survivors or when I'm talking to friends about this. But that didn't protect me from having those moments of doubt, going, oh, is this my fault? Like, maybe I should have been more assertive, or I shouldn't have got myself into that situation. And they're just so insidious as ideas that we have to be really vigilant about rooting them out. But for sure, this idea that if you're communicative enough and if you're self-knowing enough about what you want, that you can avoid getting violated, it's such bollocks. And I have this sense of I'm doggedly like exploring this because because this kind of pleasure is so important to me, and I embrace it, and I feel so lucky that I'm able to, that I don't have the kind of shame or repression or cultural oppression that means that it's not open to me. I feel very lucky that I live at a time and in a place and within a community where this is feasible. That's like a tiny minority of people who can be like, I've got a boyfriend and a girlfriend and I'm going out and I'm having kinky sex with random people and I'm living my queer best life. Like, that is so privileged. And I feel like I want to embrace that. No one's a kind of clean slate when it comes to sexual trauma, or hardly anyone is, but I'm very lucky that I'm not like carrying around like a kind of taut fuse where I could be kind of triggered at any moment. I feel like I'm very able to be very present with people, and so if those people are trustworthy, as most people are, it doesn't like ruin or blight those experiences. So I've had a lot of experiences with people where I was entirely present, entirely safe, had a very sexy time, which is why I keep doing it.